questions, we can do that kind of before the exercise. And then I'm happy to stay on if anybody has more specific questions, because then we'll turn the video off. So just kind of wanted to let you know about that format. But otherwise, is everybody okay for us to just record this for the individual who couldn't come tonight?
Right.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So as I was thinking about this, coping with COVID, obviously there's a lot going on for a lot of people. And so rather than kind of overloading you with too much information, I kind of decided to focus it in on stress and anxiety, and do maybe more about anxiety versus depression. And if people are struggling with depression, certainly you can reach out to me if you need to, and we can deal with that differently. But I think the majority of people that I've been dealing with have just been dealing with the stress and the anxiety of this. So I hope that's okay that we're kind of focused more on the anxiety. I'm just gonna start, I wanna give you a little brief training about anxiety, because I think we all know what anxiety feels like, but we don't necessarily know how it starts. And I think in order for us to know how to manage it, we often have to know where something comes from and how to start it. So there's really two pathways for anxiety. One is called bottom up and the other is called top down. And that's important because it's important to be able to figure out what kind of anxiety and stress you're dealing with in order to have a good intervention for it. Just a little bit, very little bit of brain education. Our brain develops from the bottom up. So as we grow and learn and become more functional, those are the things that come as our brain grows forward. So, and that's kind of important. One of the parts of our brain, and our early part of the brain, is called the amygdala. And the amygdala is responsible for a lot of body functions, including our emotions. So that's why it's important for us to know about the amygdala. Its role is to attach emotional significance to situations. So I'm just going to say that again. So the amygdala's role, don't worry, I'm not going to get much more scientific than this, but the amygdala's role is to attach emotions to circumstances. So when we're talking about stress and anxiety, it's the amygdala that has us fight, flight, or freeze. I mean, you've heard about those responses to stress and anxiety, fight, flight, freeze. That comes from the amygdala. It's the amygdala that keeps us safe, right? Because it's when we feel danger, it's the amygdala that knows that and causes us to respond to that danger. And usually we say fight, flight, or freeze. So the thing to remember too is it's the anxious people who probably have survived throughout history, right? They're the ones that have been activated to take care of themselves. So all of us, because anxiety is genetic, come from people who are the more anxious people. So in some ways it makes sense that anxiety is just increasing, because those are the people who've survived, because those are the people who've been able to sense danger and deal with danger. So because the amygdala deals with bodily functions, for instance, when someone's in panic and their heart races, that's the amygdala starting their racing heart. Because it's the amygdala activating the body and the body functions so that people can respond the way they need to. Someone has said it's like the conductor of an orchestra. So that one's for you, Zach. Right? Like, it's the thing that tells all the different body parts what to do and when to do it. So that's bottom up, that's the amygdala. The other way that anxiety comes is top down, okay? And if we think about our brain, the last part of our brain to develop is the cortex. And the cortex is where we get our reasoning and our problem solving. When I'm working with teenagers who think they know it all, I remind them that their cortex won't be fully developed until they're 23 for girls and 26 for boys. So as much as they think they can do all their problem solving, I remind them that they really can't, and it's not their fault they can't, because they just don't have the brain yet to do that. So anyway, that's, luckily, we all have our full brain with us. So that's the reasoning and the problem solving. However, a lot of times our reasoning can ignite our anxiety, right? Like sometimes that's where our anxiety starts. And our cortex will then send a message to our amygdala, because the amygdala is ultimately responsible for our anxiety, right? But it's the cortex that kind of stimulates the amygdala and activates it. So we can all, and we'll get into this, we can all think about ways that our cortex can run wild, our thinking about things, you know, our obsessive thoughts, our ruminating, all of those things that then, as that loop of worry or anticipation or anxiety gets started, it can then send us into anxiety. And some people panic, depending. So the reason I wanted to give you that little background is because the interventions, hi minions, how are you? The interventions are really based on where somebody's anxiety and stress begins. So if it begins in the thinking and the reasoning part of the brain, there's different things to do for it than if it begins in the panic amygdala part of the brain. And probably a lot of that has to do with our growing up and our history. So people who have had trauma in their past, often their anxiety stems immediately from the amygdala because they have been trained to deal with danger. They've had a lot of dangerous experiences in their lives. For other people, a lot of times our anxiety just starts in our cortex. So thoughts like pessimism, right? That's something, that's a thought that starts in our cortex that then can become a trigger for anxiety. Obsessive thoughts, like I said, or worrying. Perfectionism, right? Wanting to do things perfectly. That's a thought that then can impact our level of stress and anxiety. And let's face it, in these times, none of us are doing the things that we want to do the way we want to do them. So I think that's creating a lot of stress for a lot of people, especially people who are used to having structure as part of their day and, you know, part of how they navigate themselves. The other way that the cortex can kind of instigate anxiety is sometimes it tells us things that aren't necessarily true. Okay, like I'm having a heart attack when maybe you're not having a heart attack, right? Or I'm going to go crazy, or I'm going to fail. You know, that's kind of what we talk about for kids who are going to have a hard test, right? They keep telling themselves they're going to fail, they're going to fail, they're going to fail. Well, if you talk to them after the test, for those of you with grandkids, right? Well, did you fail the test? Well, no, of course they didn't fail the test. You know what I mean? So that's the cortex too, but it isn't always accurate. So anyway, let me just pause here. Does that make sense to people? Is that helpful for people? Any questions about that? Okay. Okay. So now I wanted to kind of go with general, what do you do with that? First, what do you do if you feel like it's more of a panic response from the amygdala? What are the interventions you can use for that? And then we'll go into the interventions for the cortex, if the anxiety and stress is starting from the cortex. And then we'll do some real specific things that I like to do with clients to kind of teach them some things, and we might do those kind of interchange too. So everybody's talking these days about breathing exercises, kind of ad nauseum, I will just say. And if I didn't believe they were helpful, I'd be super sick of that conversation about breathing exercises and mindfulness. However, research does show that 8 weeks of basic very basic mindfulness practices, does shrink the amygdala, and it does grow the gray matter in the cortex. So we'll be talking about mindfulness for both the bottom up and the top down way of dealing with stress, but it's a proven fact through MRIs that that's a really helpful tool, and we'll figure out ways to make it more helpful because it feels a little ambiguous, I think, for a lot of people when they just say do breathing exercises. But that's one way to quiet the amygdala. I will also say that because the amygdala can't reason, and when we talk about that real panic, anxiety, and stress, the only way to change the amygdala is through experiences. So that's why the breathing exercises are super important, because you're actually helping your amygdala learn how to calm itself. So I hope that made sense. Did that make sense to people, or was that vague?
No, sounds good.
Okay. People have talked about muscle relaxation, progressive muscle relaxation. That's another way to calm the amygdala. If you need any of these type of things, I didn't do a whole lot with a lot of the amygdala-based things. As far as interventions later, feel free to connect with me later. Exercise is really important for the amygdala. It's the reset. It reduces the sympathetic nervous system's activation. So one of the things it does, and this is how I dumb it down for the little kids that I see, is our brain gets filled with all of these stress chemicals, and when we exercise, the blood pumps through our bodies more and pumps through our brain, and we have more oxygen, and that kind of just diffuses the anxiety chemicals that kind of build up in our brain. So exercise is your reset. So that's a really good prevention thing for any kind of stress. Sleep is super important for stress and anxiety for the amygdala. 7 to 8 hours. I mean, we all hear 7 to 8 hours, but the REM sleep, which is what everybody says is the best sleep, begins to happen in hours 7 and 8. So that was something new that I learned recently. Like, I wasn't sure exactly that that REM sleep happened so late in sorry, hi Mark. That's an old friend of mine at Lois's house. So that's why sleep is another really important thing for dealing with stress. And then finally, you may have heard, if you've ever talked to anybody, exposure therapy, or figuring out how to push through anxiety by gradually exposing yourself to things. I'll give you a personal example. As a kid, I was bitten by a dog twice. We did not have any pets. So my only experience with dogs was being bitten and being barked at and being terrified by them. So anytime I came upon a dog, up until a couple years ago when I really decided to work on this, my amygdala went crazy. And when I did home-based for the work I did, I couldn't get out of the car if there was a dog that was coming up. Like, I just froze. So experience is the thing that trains our amygdala. So I had to do some exposure therapy. Some friends of Sophia's had a very, very large German Shepherd that I forced myself to pet. And when I would drop her off as a kid, and they would laugh at me because it wasn't a very nice petting. It was just a very, like, I can do this kind of petting. But anyway, little by little, I've tried to expose myself to dogs. Decided to take care of our neighbor's dog once. And I did that on purpose to help myself figure out how to manage dogs. I knew I'd have to take care of it. I couldn't run away. So those are some things about exposure. We do those kind of in everyday life. Some people do those very specifically if they go to see a therapist. If they're afraid to get on a plane or something, there's ways that you can help people prepare to fly. So my guess is that more of us are dealing with the cortex type anxiety and stress these days, right? I think the first week of this, when we were all thrown into new things, and I was thrown into doing therapy by telehealth, which is basically this only with one person, it really felt like a lot of my tried and true techniques weren't working. I kind of always finish up with, okay, what are you going to do? What's your homework? You know, let's get busy. You know, how are you going to either connect or reach out to somebody or exercise or do something? And even the cognitive stuff was really hard because I think I was even grappling with, what are those things that I can hang on to, those thoughts that I can really ground myself with, because that's a lot of what we do for cortex. So I'll talk a little bit about interventions for stress and anxiety based on the cortex, and then we'll get into some more specifics. My favorite intervention, and this is the one I was kind of talking to you about that I was kind of struggling with, and I'm going to see if I can figure out how to do this. I'm going to try to share a screen with the picture on it. So bear with me for 1 minute. Oh, host disabled attendee screen sharing. Is there any way you can enable that? Let me try again. Okay, that's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write it.
Betsy, I think I changed it. You should be able to share your screen now.
Okay, let me see here. Oh, yeah, okay. Nope, not that. Now I can't get rid of it. Do you guys all see that? Those are my notes, huh? I had it all set up and now I don't know where it is. Okay. And now I can't unshare. Stop share. There we go. Okay. Never mind. I had it set up, but I can't find it now. So sorry about that. So I'll just do this. Can you read that? Nope, you can't.
Yeah.
Okay. Basically, it says situations lead to feelings. And a lot of times we think that, right? We think, okay, someone got angry with me, I feel sad, right? Like, so we think there are circumstances and situations lead to feelings. And really, that's not what happens at all. There's another step in there. The step is our beliefs and thoughts, if you can see that, okay? So situations don't lead to our feelings, but what we believe and think about those situations, that really is what leads to our feelings of stress, anxiety, fear, anything. So, for instance, a dog comes running up, we'll just go with the dog analogy, barking. For me, my belief and thought would be, oh no, he's going to attack me, and I will be completely afraid. Somebody else might think, I love dogs. He's coming to greet me. I can't wait to pet him. And so their feeling would be completely different. So the reason that is important is with what we've learned about our brain being able to change, we can change what we believe about things in order to feel different. So we can change what we believe about COVID in order to feel different about it, for instance. Now that's a little bit tricky because we don't have a lot of facts about it, and it seems like the facts are changing every day, and it seems like, depends on what channel of news you watch, depends on what the facts are for that day. So I think that's a little bit why some of the cognitive techniques have been a little bit difficult. Another intervention for our cortex is distraction, or changing the channel is what I say to kids and teens, right? So how do I, when I feel stress and anxiety, how do I just distract myself? What can I do to stop thinking about whatever it is causing me stress and just change the channel? So if, you know what I mean, figuratively, right? So if I'm very stressed, I have a client that's very stressed because her dad, who has a lung condition, and he still has been required to work and deliver parts this whole time about COVID. So she has been super anxious about the health and safety of her older father. So one of the things we've been working on is, okay, well, how do you distract yourself? So she loves to read. So for her, one way that she's coping right now is getting lost in a good book, trying really hard not to think about the danger that is her dad is in. Also, kind of she's anxious enough that she's actually even minimizing connections with him so that she doesn't have to hear about the danger that he's in. So that's another thing about a way we can deal with that by distraction or changing the channel. Another thing we can do with our anxiety and worry is we can contain it. I give you these examples for little kids because I think it makes it easier to understand. But when I talk about containment for worries, one of the things I tell the kids to do is write it down and put it in their worry box. Either literally write it down or figuratively. And then we have a parent deal with worry time once a day for 10 minutes. And so fine, we'll deal with your worries, because sometimes just saying I'm not going to worry isn't enough, but to say I'm going to worry about this during my worry time, or I'm going to worry about this later. So as adults, a way that we can do containment is I'm only going to watch the news in the morning. Because if I watch the news at night, I just sit there and lay in bed and think about the news, right? Or it may be another containment. Whenever I talk to so-and-so will only ever talk about such and such and such. And right now, I can't manage that. Another personal example, I had to do some containment with some friends. They were starting to post political things on a text string that normally we use for prayer requests. And it threw me for a loop. It was like, oh my goodness, they've interrupted what I thought was kind of my sacred space. So I kind of needed, first I just let it go, but then when it happened again, I needed to contain that and say, I'm sorry guys, I just can't, I can't know that that's going to pop up in our text all the time. So that's another way of containment. And then we have the mindfulness stuff again that I talked about before, and that's what I'm going to talk a little bit more about. And then also self-care. So what are those ways that we take care of ourselves? Monday, for me, it's nature. Monday, I started out with a walk with my sister with my earbuds in, and then I just ended up walking and staying in the park. I saw 2 pileated woodpeckers, which was a total game changer for me because I love birds. And then I saw some flickers, which made it even better day. But I was feeling a lot of stress and I just needed to be outside. So I found a little soccer field that nobody was at, and I just sat there and I listened to Zach's song, actually. That was one of the things I did. The Be Still song, I'd recommend that for stress and anxiety. Amongst other things, listen to some praise music, and that was kind of my way of regenerating and doing my self-care. So anyway, those are, I've kind of gone over lots of interventions. I'm going to talk a little bit more specifically about different ways to do mindfulness, both for the amygdala and for the cortex. But before I do that, does anybody have any questions or any thoughts? Are you still with me? Too much information? Give me some feedback. What's going on?
Very clear. You've done
Okay.
a great job. Mhm.
Okay. What have you found to be the most helpful? What's the thing that you can pick out? Right on the spot.
What to do, how you can change the beliefs, thinking about the belief that changes feelings. And
Great. That's key. That's really important in a lot of different things. Great. Thanks, Jeannie. Okay. So I'm going to go over, and I have a couple of different things. So I'm going to just assume that most of you are here for yourself. If not, will you just kind of physically raise your hand? Like if you're here because you really want to know how to deal with your grandchild's anxiety, or you really want to deal with your spouse's anxiety, would you just raise your hand? Otherwise, I'll just kind of talk to it about.
I have a friend I want to share with. I've been taking notes. I'll share with her.
Oh, okay, great. How old is your friend? About our age?
About 42.
Okay. So then these are all going to be kind of adult techniques. I can dumb them down for kids, and we do.
You might have to dumb them down for me.
What did you say? Okay, I'll give you some of the kids' ones because some of those are my favorites. Okay, so when we talk about breathing, right? When we're feeling the stress in the moment, which is the amygdala, right? If the anxiety or stress is getting to us and our heart feels like it's starting to pump more quickly, right? One of the things that you can do for breathing is what I call hot chocolate or tea or coffee for those of us that drink tea and coffee. And really it's getting yourself a really hot beverage, right? And breathing in the smell of the hot chocolate or the tea for 4, and then cooling it down for 8. And the reason I like that is it's not just about the numbers, it's activating different senses. And so it allows you to be a little bit more present than just the breathe in for 4, breathe out for 8, which is what they suggest. Really, it's breathe in for 4, breathe out for 7, right? But that's just a little bit kind of boring, right? Who wants to keep doing that? So get yourself a cup of tea that's a really great flavor that you love. And another way of dealing with grounding is sensations. And so putting your hands around the warm mug and breathing in for 4 and cooling for 8, and just doing that until you feel relaxed. So that's the one I talk about with kids. Another one I talk about is breathing in 4s. And I like this one for the cortex because it's also a distraction. It's also called breathing in squares. So I'm going to have you guys do it with me. And we're going to do the whole thing. It might feel a little bit long, but bear with me. We're just going to practice it. So really breathing in 4s, and I'm going to talk you through it because sometimes this is the thing that I teach people in the middle of a panic attack. So we're going to breathe in for 4. We're going to hold for 4. We're going to breathe out for 4. We're going to hold for 4. That's 1. We're going to breathe in for 4. Hold for 4. Breathe out for 4. Hold for 4. That's 2. Breathe in for 4. Hold for 4. Breathe out for 4. Hold for 4. That's 3. Breathe in for 4. Hold for 4. Breathe out for 4. Hold for 4. That's 4. So that's breathing, right? And I didn't do it quite as effectively because I was trying to count. But the distraction piece of that is you're trying to do all this counting while you're trying to do this breathing. So it occupies your mind while it's calming your body. So if you're ruminating about thoughts that you just really want to stop your thoughts, that's a really nice way of doing the distraction and doing the breathing. I'm trying to think here.
I make a comment.
Yes, please.
I've heard that that's also a good way to go to sleep because it gets your mind off of everything else and you just keep the breathing and counting, and finally you just get tired of it and you just sort of give up.
That's exactly true. Yeah. How many of you guys are having a hard time falling asleep because of stress and anxiety? Okay. But that's a great point. Thanks, Lois. It's a really good way of falling asleep. Yeah. Okay. The other one I'm going to just give you is really kind of more of a self-care, but also a mindfulness thing, and it's the acronym GLAD. And there's a lot of research about gratitude journals and how gratitude journals really change how you think about things. So kind of back to that diagram that Jeannie was talking about, it makes you focus more on what you're thankful for. I've been suggesting to my clients, rather than just gratitude, to do this acronym called GLAD. So the G is gratitude. So what's one thing that I'm grateful for today? The L is learn. What's one thing I learned today? So maybe you learned a fact. Maybe you learned something about yourself. Maybe you learned something about a family member or a friend, right? Like, it doesn't just have to be facts-based. It could be, what's one thing I learned today? Maybe you decided you were going to learn how to knit or make masks. I don't know. I learned that. A is achieved. With all of us hunkered down, it's so hard to feel like we're accomplishing what we normally accomplish. So it's really important for us to say, okay, what did I achieve today? And for depressed people, this is really important. Like, even if it's just, I made my bed today, and you know what, that was enough. That's okay. And then the D is what delighted you. What's one thing that delighted you today? And again, that kind of brings that gratitude more personal, right? Like, okay, what delighted one of my clients was, she has a son who lives in California, and he surprised her with a phone call on a day he doesn't normally call. So that was what delighted her. So there are some of my clients who are starting to write this down, and one of the things that one of them said was they liked gratitudes, but gratitudes was really more outside, kind of about things that were outside of themselves. And once they did this GLAD acronym, it made it a little bit more personal. It just was a little bit more about what they were learning, about what they were accomplishing, about what delighted them. And so it was easy to list the things outside of themselves that they were grateful for, and this kind of brought it home more. Finally, before I I'm trying to think here. A couple of really nice resources are some really good apps and computer programs for dealing with stress and anxiety. Governor Whitmer has, I found out, created a contract with a website and also an app called Headspace.
Say it again, please.
Headspace, HEADSPACE. On your computer, it's headspace.org/MI for Michigan. And you can go on there, and it can give you all sorts of breathing exercises. It gives you all sorts of information about dealing with stress and anxiety. But it's a really great website, and there's a lot of things on it that are free. You can upgrade. You really don't need to. Just go with the freebie. That is also a free app. If you have cell phone, either Android or iOS, it's free as an app as well. Another app I like is Calm, C-A-L-M. And that's I think I told you before, one of the ways I do self-care is nature. So for me, Calm app there's raindrops. There's a picture of rain falling on leaves and the sound of raindrops. And at the bottom, and I can actually open this up. Again, this one's also free. At the bottom of Calm, that's what I fell asleep to last night. Can you hear that or not? Where is the microphone? Where is the microphone on this? I don't even know.
Where are your faces?
Oh, okay. Can you hear the raindrops or not?
Raise it. No.
No? Okay. Anyway. Oh, at the bottom, it also has different things like, okay, do I need this for sleep? Sorry, now I can't turn it off. Do I need this for sleep? You can do the sleep one at the bottom. And finally, the other app I really like it's called PTSD Coach. So, Jeannie, for your friend who maybe really, really struggles with anxiety, PTSD stands for post-traumatic stress disorder. That's that amygdala-based anxiety, right? Whether she has that or not, It's a phenomenal app. And one of the things that you can do in that app, again, it's free, is you can rate how anxious you are on a thermometer and go into the tools, and it will walk you through different tools.
It's PTSD. What's the rest of it?
Coach, COACH.
Okay.
Say that again.
P for post, T for traumatic, S for stress, D for disorder. So PTSD Coach, like a football coach.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And that one, so guided imagery, for instance, like walking you through something that you can envision, is a really nice mindfulness calming exercise. It will give you that. And after it gives you a tool, you can give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And then the next time you rate your anxiety, it will know, well, she either likes this one or she doesn't like this one. So I kind of like that one because it starts to hone in and individualize a little bit. So the best thing to do is play around with these when you're not anxious, because you can learn a lot more when you're not anxious, and then you kind of know how to use them when you're anxious. So those are some interventions. Those are some nice little things we have at our disposal to help with those interventions. I kind of thought that we would do some questions if you have any questions. And then I'd like to finish with my favorite mindfulness thing, which is a loving kindness meditation. And then for those of you that want to leave the meeting, you can leave the meeting. And for those of you that have like specific questions about either yourself or someone specific that are maybe a little bit more private, I'd be happy to stay on and answer any of those questions. So any general questions, first of all? Anything you were hoping to get out of this that you didn't?
I have a question for you.
Great.
It's not so much for myself. We've gotten through this pretty good. And for me, I go out in the backyard. We've been banging around. The mulching is all done. Never been done so early in the year before. And I just find keeping myself busy. I'm happier in general.
Mm-hmm.
But for those who say I'm just so stressed over this,
Mm-hmm.
what can be just some general words to say, hang in there, calm down, we're going to get beyond this. This isn't going to be forever,
Mm-hmm.
but that it may be coming back. So you kind of have to take everything with a little bit of grain of salt and be patient. And there's a lot about this we don't know. We don't know how it's going to go away and when the vaccinations are going to be available and treatments and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
But just be smart in how you live your life. Wear your mask, wear your gloves.
Mm-hmm.
Be proactive in trying to protect yourself.
Yeah. So those are all good suggestions. I also think for people who are really anxious is really normalizing it right now. Like everybody feels a little out of sorts, even the mental health people, right? Like all of us feel a little out of sorts because things are really different. So giving them permission to be anxious about it and kind of joining first with how they're feeling about it. And then I think some of the things you said were helpful, right? Like we're going to get through this. You know, we have smart people who are working on this. I think some of the reality things that you said were helpful. And I think that's kind of where our normal reality mantras that we hang on to, we're being a little bit challenged about those. You know, we might have said, well, we know all about the flu, you know what I mean? But we don't know all about this. So I don't know. I think some of the things you said, like we're going to get through this, maybe saying to them what's something that brings you peace and asking them a question. And if they can identify something that brings them peace, then kind of asking them, okay, so tell me a little bit, when can you do that? You know, how can you do that? And maybe it's just really more about meeting them in the feeling and kind of asking them questions and then reassuring them. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I don't have the perfect tagline. I wish I did. It's hard these days. So.
Well, I don't always want to go up to somebody and say, well, you know, hang in there. We're going to get through there, because they're probably sick of hearing that already.
Yeah. And I think sometimes that seems a little trite. That's why I think, you know, kind of joining with them, you know, like, yeah, this is, and maybe if it's not hard for you, that's okay. You can still say, you know, this
I
is
know, I'm sick of cooking. I want to get out of the house. I
challenging.
don't know. I want to go out to breakfast.
Okay. But I think it's okay to say this is challenging for a lot of people, and everybody's being affected by this in some way or another. And sometimes I think even the most comforting things is allowing people to feel the feelings that they feel and maybe not trying to change them. And that would be an amygdala-based intervention, right? Getting through the experience with calm and knowing they'll be okay, versus trying to necessarily change it. Letting them know that they can sit in that anxiety and they'll still be okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So this will take about 5 minutes if you want to stick with us, but this is my favorite. It's a loving kindness meditation. Some people have a hard time with the word meditation. Maybe it feels a little too Eastern or Buddha-ish, but I really like to use this meditation as a prayer. And I think, and this one I chose specifically because I think it deals with a lot of the things that we're dealing with COVID, actually. So rather than do the introduction, I'm just going to say, really, mindfulness is about paying attention. Like, what are you paying attention to? So some of those interventions I gave you were paying attention to your breathing, right? Some of those interventions were paying attention to gratitude, you know? So it's really a practice of paying attention. None of us are really good at it unless we practice. So if your mind wanders, that's normal and that's totally okay. And don't beat yourself up about it. Don't let your inner critic go wild about it. Just think, oops, you know, I lost focus. I'm going to repay attention. I'm going to refocus, because part of mindfulness is teaching yourself how to refocus on what you want to be focused on. So it's, and really it's about being present in the moment. So I think we'll begin. So I'm going to just ask you guys to get comfortable. If you want to close your eyes, close your eyes. Do whatever you need to do to be in a comfortable position. I'm not going to be looking at you because I'm going to basically read this because it's easier if I just read it. So we begin by offering loving kindness to ourselves by silently repeating, may I be safe, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I live with ease. This last phrase, may I live with ease, means the things of day-to-day life, like work and family. May it not be a struggle. May I live with ease. The portion of the phrase, may I, is not meant to be begging, but is done in the spirit of generosity or blessing, both to ourselves and to others. May I be healthy. May you be healthy. In other practices, the anchor for the attention is the breath or the body. With loving kindness, the anchor for attention is the repetition of the phrases. If you find your mind wandering, simply let go and begin again, bringing your attention back to the phrases. You don't have to follow after your thoughts. You don't have to attack them, just notice. And so we steady our attention again by coming back to the phrases. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. Repeat the phrases inwardly with enough space and enough silence so that it's a rhythm that's meaningful to you. It's just one phrase at a time with all of your attention gathered behind each phrase. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. And now call to mind a benefactor or a mentor, someone who's helped you, a person you know who's been good and kind to you, or someone you've never met who's inspired you. Picture that person, say his or her name to yourself, get a feeling of that person's presence, and offer the phrases of loving kindness to them. Offer your mentor what you've offered for yourself. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. Thoughts may arise when you're picturing your mentor. You may be saying something to yourself like, why does this person who is so great even need my kindness? Notice and just let the thought pass away as your attention steadies back on the repetition of the phrases. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. If you find your attention wandering, don't be discouraged. Just let go and come back one phrase at a time. And now bring to mind someone you know who's hurting or having a really difficult time right now. Picture this person. Say his or her name silently to yourself. Get a feeling of their presence and offer the phrases of loving kindness to them. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. And now call to mind someone you might encounter now and then, a neutral person like a neighbor, a checkout person at the supermarket, someone you see when you walk your dog. Perhaps you don't even know their name, but picture him or her and get a feeling of their presence. Though you don't know this person's story, you can know that they want to be happy just as you do, that they are vulnerable to pain and loss just as you are, and you can want this person to be well also. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. And now call to mind a difficult person, someone you have trouble getting along with, or whose words or actions are difficult for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. If you pick a difficult person but find that sending loving kindness is too hard right now, then just go back to sending loving kindness to yourself. In the moment, you're the one who's suffering, so you're quite worthy of some compassionate attention. And then see if you can return again to this difficult person. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. Finally, you can offer your generosity and the force of loving kindness and God's loving kindness to all beings everywhere, all people, all creatures, known and unknown, near and far. May all beings be safe. May all beings be happy. May all people be healthy. May all people live with ease. May all people be safe. May all people be happy. May all people be healthy. May all people live with ease. And as you begin to withdraw from the loving kindness meditation, come back to your breath. Sensing and feeling in your whole body as you breathe in and as you breathe out. And when you're ready, you can bring your attention back to the room.